Alright, it's time for the main event, folks. So, I think it's finally time to deal with John Doyle. John Doyle has a video called WTF is going on, TBH. Mad Zoomer lingo. And this is in regard to the Capitol riots, the Capitol insurrection attempt, whatever you want to call it. The event in which a bunch of idiot Trump supporters, like John Doyle, raided the Capitol building, and 5 people died. Bombs were found, some of them had Molotov cocktails, some of them had restraining devices. Fun stuff. Anyway, let's see how John is responding to this national tragedy.
We all saw what happened yesterday at the Capitol. We all know what happened, so I just wanted to make this video really quickly so we can touch base. And I'd like to be able to give you my honest opinion on everything, but I just simply can't because I don't want to risk it on YouTube. And so if you want to hear my honest opinion on it, I did a live stream yesterday for an hour that will be archived on the website for members to access. And it's honestly, I think, one of the best streams that we've ever done in terms of the sheer quality of my takes. But
Yikerinos, John Doyle's take, honest take, on the events are so bad that he recognizes he will get banned off YouTube if he is completely and openly honest about it. Yikes.
I don't know. I want to keep it relaxed here. We're still very busy over here planning for the Texas move, the new studio, the anti-porn dissertation, all that stuff. But I have to touch on this at least a little bit, despite the fact that the energy is a little...
Let me see if I can... Hold on. Because I thought their Discord got banned, so I'm curious where he's holding the private Discord. But again, I thought the Discord got banned. At least he said it did on his Instagram. He said it got banned. So I'm curious where he's posting this stuff now. Probably under videos on here. And then I would need to give him money. Which I plan to do at some point anyway, to kind of get his, you know.
Right, capitalistic propaganda.
Another time.
Low right now. And at first I thought it was because of winter. Like, you know, the country's over here collapsing and I'm like, maybe I'm a little down because it's winter. Maybe it's seasonal. Maybe it's just because it's cold out. But yeah, I've got 4 points of bad news from yesterday that we need to address. And then I've got 5 points of good news that we should also address. And again, if you want to hear a more detailed take on what happened yesterday, please go check it out on the website. That's how you can support the channel. They just banned our Discord yesterday for literally no reason. But
I'm going to press X to doubt on that one, John. Your Discord got banned in the middle of a bunch of MAGA people rioting and storming the Capitol building. I'm going to guess the people on your server had some spicy takes on it. And by spicy takes, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if some of your fans were a part of the mob, possibly talking about it on your Discord, or at the very least, you were probably egging it on. Fun stuff.
They use things like this as an excuse to clamp down on people with the wrong opinions. And so as we'll talk about, we need your support now more than ever. And I mean we as in like every independent right-wing content creator or commentator, whatever you want to call us, because ultimately we work for you. And it's going to get a lot more difficult to do this in the near future and also in the broader timeline if the trends continue. And you might think that I'm being pessimistic. I don't think I am. I think I'm just being honest. I think I'm calling it how I see it because what happened yesterday happened. And now it's over, which means that all we can do now is look ahead to the future and deal with the consequences of that event that we're all going to face regardless of whether we were there, regardless of whether we support it. None of that even matters. Like, we're all implicated because we're all conservative or we're all Trump.
No, John, you're implicated because you were involved in riling up the base with unfounded claims of conspiracy against Donald Trump to subvert an election. Which isn't what happened. You're culpable because this is what you do. You're culpable for pushing fashy ideology. You're culpable for fostering an audience that loves this shit and has been riled into the stratosphere by your claims of election fraud that are completely unfounded. This is on people like you, John. The crackdown is happening because people were kind of letting idiots like you go for quite a while and just like, I don't know. Unfortunately, people are inherently pretty reactionary by nature. We're really bad at being proactive. If we were proactive, people would have seen people like you for what you were and what you were inciting. Slowly at first, but of course it ramped up until what we got the other day happened, and I'm sure that's not the end. I'm sure this stuff will continue. But now that we see, like, okay, we were right. Looks like this stuff ends in violence and people trying to install a fascist dictatorship, we should probably start doing something about this. And then finally, places like Twitter and stuff are doing things to try and prevent the radicalization of people further into the future. I'm sure you're on the chopping block at some point, John, and quite frankly, you deserve it. You deserve it very much so. So, enjoy your YouTube while you can. Be very careful with what you say, because you're gonna get cut one of these days. Because this is your fault. Not only your fault, but you're certainly part of the reason that this happened. People like you.
Supporters or whatever, like I won't speak for you individually, but you get what I'm saying. Like a lot of people will hear this and think that I'm condemning or disavowing the protesters, but I didn't say that. Those aren't my words. And again, I have to be very careful with my words here on YouTube. But
so he's saying I'm not condemning them or disavowing them, and I can't say what I want to say on YouTube. Boy, John, it sure does sound like you're advocating for people to take violent revolution against the United States of America because you don't like that Donald Trump lost.
But I will say that I understand why they did what they did, not even in terms of like the way the media has glorified and enabled rioting for the last 6 months in this country. But I will say that there is a key difference that no one really seems to be highlighting because, of course, you know, conservatives are playing.
Is he going to do the thing? Is he going to be like, well, we didn't set anything on fire, so it's fine. We didn't set a dumpster on fire like Black Lives Matter or burn a Wendy's to the ground. We just tried to, you know, do a coup and overturn United States democracy as we know it. But there was no fire, so that's fine. I've seen that take a lot recently from the right.
Favorite game right now, which is, can you believe the left? Look at the hypocrisy, which is just really low-hanging fruit. But the key difference, and this is all that I'll say, is that one group of people hates our country so much that they're willing to risk their lives to destroy it, and the other group of people loves our country so much that they're willing to risk their lives for it.
No! John. No. One group of people is willing to take action to try and stop them getting killed by the police for the color of their skin, and the other group are mostly disaffected, insecure white people who are mad that their fashy daddy lost an election, have been riled up because they get all their information from Facebook and the Donald.win, and you've riled them up into a conspiracy frenzy over the last 3 years over shit like QAnon. That's the difference, John. You actively tried to overthrow the United States government, whereas Black Lives Matter, for one thing, mostly peaceful, but even when it wasn't, it was over something that mattered. It was over something that's important. The rights of people in the United States to not be killed for the color of their skin, whereas you just don't like that you lost an election fair and square. How dare you try and equivocate these two things, you absolute jackass.
Do with that as you will. But anyways, the first point of bad news is that we poked the bear. That's really what happened. We didn't drain the swamp. We didn't overturn the results of the election. We basically just poked the bear. And now we're going to get our teeth kicked in because we simply don't have the power in society necessary to get away with something like that or even to be successful in what was trying to be achieved in the first place, if anything at all. And this is important because people will say, well, what about when the left riots? Or they'll say, well, I'm consistent and I condemn this on both sides. And it's like, yeah, that's great, but you have to understand that the right and the left do not exist as equals in society. And therefore, even when they act with relative similarity to each other, the results of this will not be the same because conservatives have no power or representation in society. And to this, you might...
Conservatives have no power or representation in society, whereas for the last... Jesus Christ. You had the presidency, you had the Senate. For the first 2 years, you had the Senate and the House, and then, of course, the House got taken by the Democrats in 2018. You have a packed Supreme Court, but you have no representatives in society. You have no representation in society outside of having the majority of the power in the government. Cool claim.
I'd say, well, you can't really compare 6 months of rioting from the left with what happened yesterday from the right. And it's like, yeah, that's the point. It doesn't even matter. We don't control the narratives and we don't write the history books. And you'd better believe that what happened yesterday...
I think you'd have to know how to read in order to write history books. And you'd actually have to know how to, I don't know, function in academia, which you guys seem to be allergic to. So that's a bummer.
Will be included in the history books, and all of that rioting that we saw over the summer, the last 6 months, that will either be excluded or it will be documented as effectively equal to the sit-ins of the civil rights movement. Like, it's one thing if you poke the bear and then it wakes up and you just...
There's nothing funny.
Oh, God.
Bug it in the skull with like a .44 Magnum, but we basically just went in there and poked the bear, and now things are gonna get really bad.
We poked the bear by trying to overthrow democracy and brought explosives and Molotov cocktails and tried to kidnap senators, and we fist fought the police in the Capitol building. Why are they demonizing us?
For us, we're basically defenseless. We're RJ. We're just RJ. We thought we were the D Pelter Turbo, but it turns out we're just RJ.
Yeah, I think about Over the Hedge a lot too, John. We're two sides of the same coin.
And so the point is that people on the right have been talking about the revolution, starting a revolution in this country for decades, the Second Amendment, all that stuff. Then we find out that we're not even powerful enough to just occupy a building without the DOJ getting after people getting killed, losing their jobs, etc. And again, I'm not saying that I
occupy a building, aka storming the Capitol building during the certification of the Electoral College results. Batty Bell, thank you for gifting some subs to the community. Appreciate it. The language he uses is very selective, and I find it incredibly frustrating that there are people who I guess are gullible enough to buy it when he's like, we were just occupying a building. What? It's just a building that we occupied. Really? What building was it, John? And why were you occupying the building? Was it just a random Arby's somewhere that you decided to occupy? Occupy beef and cheddar now! Or was it a bunch of Trump supporters infiltrating and breaking into, and I do mean literally breaking into by breaking windows and doors and fighting the cops, breaking into Congress in the middle of a vote that led Congress being evacuated via underground tunnels, led to 5 deaths, led to a bunch of Trump people chanting in the State House, "Hang Mike Pence! Hang Mike Pence!" There's video of all this, by the way. But we were just occupying a building, no big deal. No one believes this shit anymore, John. We have seen what this kind of rhetoric has wrought on the country, and what it has wrought is nothing less than an attempted insurrection of the United States government. These fucking weasel words? Nuh-uh. Not anymore. No one's like, oh yeah, good point, John. You were just occupying a building. Fuck off. John, get your fucking bags and move your ass to Texas like you said you're gonna do. Get the fuck out of my state, you loser. You absolute fucking loser. Get out of my state. I'm mad today, guys. Can you tell? I'm absolutely maulding.
Any of this. I'm just saying that we poked the bear, and we're probably now going to find out, having just f***ed around. That brings us to the second point of bad news, which is that because we don't control the narratives, guilt by association is now acceptable to the masses. And this is significant because there was a time where, in order for them to cancel you with guilt by association, you'd have to like attend a conference where someone controversial was speaking or appear in a photograph with someone controversial, etc. But even then, people didn't care, like, who's that, right? But now, because of what happened, the masses can easily be sold on the idea that Trump supporters are terrorists, they're violent rioters, and they need to be dealt with, etc. And you might say, well, they told that to people about us anyway, so what's the difference? Well, the difference is that mass media requires mass promotion of manufactured narratives to serve the true purpose, which...
John is basically mad right now. Imagine it's 1930s Germany, and Kristallnacht has just happened, and you're a Nazi, and you're going, why are they all calling Nazis thugs? I wasn't there at Kristallnacht. I wasn't smashing windows, but now when I walk around in my Nazi armband, everyone just thinks I'm a thug. Yeah, if the brown shirt fits, you fucking... I'm so angry. I'm so angry that he's, like, not taking this seriously at all. How... I, for a long time, thought, okay, maybe John Doyle, because he's young, he recently, like turned 21, he's not that old. I thought, maybe John has the opportunity to change at some point. I didn't think he was going to ever become a leftist, but I thought maybe he could step back from the ledge of, like fascism. Like, he's always been fashy. But, you know, I thought maybe at some point he'll realize once he gets away from his parents, because apparently his parents are very conservative, very reactionary, backwards shitbags. I thought maybe once he gets some distance, like a lot of people, he'd kind of see other perspectives and he'd grow out of it. At this point, I don't think that's going to happen. This is John's entire life. This is John's life now. He's going to be a 50-year-old balding man sitting on a lazy boy in a trailer somewhere, still wearing a MAGA hat 30 years from now and going, these dang liberals, communists, ruin this country. He's gonna be that, and it's gonna be so sad. Anyway.
Which is just to legitimize the actions of the American regime, despite how they typically are at the expense of the American people. And so it's one thing if someone in a MAGA hat gets into a fight with like a Black Lives Matter protester, but for people to be coded in that type of merchandise and then go do what they did yesterday, and again, I'm only analyzing the implications of it, what it means going forward, can't comment on anything else, but we have to understand that those images and those videos will be promoted everywhere for at least the next 5 years.
Yeah. Don't do the terrorism then.
And the reason for that is that it's a different narrative. It's a different ends. An image of a guy in a MAGA hat beating up a black guy is much different than an image of a guy in a MAGA hat destroying the Capitol.
Sadly, I do think that's true. I think a lot of shitbag Americans care more about a building than they probably do black American lives. That's a shame.
The reason is that it suits the new purpose, right? So when they needed to convince people that conservatives and Trump supporters were these racist people, yeah, okay, let's promote those images, the images of people in MAGA hats fighting Black Lives Matter people. But in post-Trump America, the ends are different. They are to portray Donald Trump as a threat to the country. Something like this can never happen again. He was a threat to our democracy, etc. And what better images to substantiate that narrative than the ones that were gathered yesterday? Regardless of whether you're in support of what happened yesterday or you're against it, you have to understand that this really is information warfare. And when you don't have any infrastructure in society, your enemy can and will convince the masses of whatever they have to in order to eliminate you from society. And that gets into our next point of bad news, which is that everything we predicted is coming true, and it's even being accelerated, which is that the American regime, the establishment, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, is trying to consolidate its power in order to recover from the threat posed to it by President Trump and his movement. And for them to do that, they have to purge Trump supporters from the realm of perceived political legitimacy.
Yeah, to an extent, you're right, John. You need to be purged from any sort of idea of political legitimacy because you're not politically legitimate. You're a bunch of babies, like all fascists are. You're a bunch of whiny little babies who don't know what to do once you get what you want. And it's not good. We're not going to let you destroy democracy because you're insecure or whatever bullshit thing you got going on. We're not going to let you destroy democracy because you think you're better than other people around you. That's not how it works. So yes, your ideology, hopefully, will become politically illegitimate in the future. Sadly, I don't think that'll be the case. He's kind of fear-mongering here to his audience about this. I don't. I think this Trumpism brand of right-wing fascism is probably here to stay for quite a while. It's going to be sad. It's going to be real, real bad. And I'm worried that the attack on the Capitol the other day is not going to be seen as the climax of something. Not just the climax of the Trump presidency and this era, but a beginning. A beginning of a new kind of political landscape where random violence and acts of fascist terrorism take place regularly in the United States by people on the right. Former Trump supporters, current Trump supporters, whatever you want to call them. It's going to be really effed up. But the more they do that, the less legitimate they become. And the more demonized they will become, and they will ostracize themselves from the political landscape and American culture, which I guess would be a good thing, but I don't think the ends justify the means in terms of them, like, fucking people over and hurting a lot of people just to ostracize the political right from public discourse. Either way, it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be real bad.
So you will have the radical left, and then you will have a continuation of the spineless GOP who does not represent you, does not represent your interests, and in fact only exists to give you the illusion of choice. But at the end of the day, it's all the same, and it will continue to get worse. And they will come together with the manufactured narrative of bipartisanship and national unity to condemn that which posed a legitimate threat to their power, which was President Trump and his supporters and his movement. And this is because consolidation is universal. And I forgot who said this, but this is something that I've picked up from reading Marxist theory. You can learn a lot about power from reading Marxist theory, because Marxism is so retarded that most of the time they don't even try to explain how it's going to work. They really just instead focus on like getting into power and then basically winging it. But they said something to the effect of consolidation is universal, which means that to consolidate political power, you're also going to have to consolidate public opinion, necessarily. And they've got that teed up perfectly, especially because of what happened yesterday. They are literally censoring the President of the United States, which gets to our last point.
John, he was removed from Twitter because he was inciting violence. He was literally like, I love you people. You're fantastic. Go home, but we've all been cheated. We've all been cheated. You're excellent. This is great, but go home, wink, wink. You've been cheated. Bunch of bullshit. It's a private platform, John. If someone doesn't have to make a gay cake, then Twitter doesn't have to allow someone to tweet fascistically from their platform.
Which is that the president of China is now the most powerful, demonstrably the most powerful man in the world. And that's not good. You know, we can talk more about China if you want.
Why? Does he have an active Twitter account? Do you think it's based on your social media likes?
But right now it's important to understand that the president of the United States, for however much longer he's going to be president, is literally being silenced. He's being subverted and betrayed by those who are supposed to be his allies. And at this point, he really has no power.
Yeah, I hope he has no power. That'd be great, because he's a narcissist, and narcissistic rage causes people to do really, really, really effed up things. And Trump technically has the nuclear codes. So I'd rather the Joint Chiefs of Staff not have to get together and tell the president, no, we're not going to nuke California or New York or whatever dumb shit thing he wants to do.
And as China grows stronger, we grow weaker, and that is by design, because the problem isn't necessarily China. The problem is that the people who are supposed to be representing us have sold us out to China for the last 30 years, and they're going to continue to do so over the course of at least the next 5 years. Things are going to get bad. Things are going to get really bad. I wish I could sell you false hope, but the reality is that we're just going to be living through this for a minute. And on that note, actually be very careful and pay very close attention to what everyone else is talking about right now. Like, really think about who's got your back and who really cares about the country versus people who are just grifting, because that's how we got here in the first place. And I don't know if they'd be called grifters back then, but basically everyone that was supposed to defend us just decided to lie to us and then just make money for themselves. And so now we're here. But, you know, it's not all bad. We've got 5 points of good news, 5 reasons to believe that it's all going to be okay. Starting with number 1, I personally am doing pretty well. I got some cool books in the mail yesterday. This morning I had a waffle. I'm excited to move to Texas, start working on all that stuff that we have planned for this year. I'm giving a speech on the updated conservative ethos, so to speak, at the University of Arizona on the 21st. So we're excited.
Jesus Christ. What jackass university asked? I assume like a conservative student union or like group probably invited him, not specifically the college, but goddamn.
Excited about that, but enough about me. Let's talk about you. With the second piece of good news, you're living through the collapse. That's kind of epic. You're living through the collapse of the Roman Empire. That's a pretty decent dice roll.
No, John. First of all, I don't know. I think this is a transformative period of American history. I don't know if it means the end of the empire. America will continue to exist as a political entity, probably for quite some time. Not forever. Nothing lasts forever. And I don't think America will continue to be, like, the world superpower. I think we're probably going to end up splitting into more regional powers, which I'm not, saying is a good or a bad thing. I just think it's what's going to happen. United States will have a lot of power over the North America region, and at least for right now, probably all of this continent, and not just this continent, but also like Central and South America. China will kind of get like the Asian bloc. Russia will kind of do its own thing, and there's probably going to be some tension between Russia and China at some point. Europe will be its own thing. I don't know what's going to happen to the UK because of Brexit and how they're going to get treated by the EU. But either way, like it's going to be more complicated geopolitically, but America will continue to exist.
And look, okay, gamers, is it a bummer? Yes. However, you could have been alive during something much less interesting. You could have been...
Okay, that's bad, though. That's bad. John, there's a... I think it's like an old Chinese saying in Mandarin or something. Something along the lines of a curse that's, may you live in interesting times. Because it's not generally good to live in interesting times. I agree that the other day was interesting, but interesting doesn't mean good, usually. Stability isn't interesting. Stability is just stability. It's very even-handed. Things are normal, relatively. America in the 90s, I don't know. After the fall of the Soviet Union, before 9/11. That's stability. That's pretty uninteresting times outside of technological advancements and stuff. This is fucked. It's not good. It's not good. It's not a good thing.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Born in like 1875 and then die in 1900 of like tuberculosis. That's lame. And when all is said and done, none of this matters. You're not what school you went to. You're not how much money you have. All that really matters is your character and your story. And whoever has the best character and the best story wins. And given the fact that you're living through the collapse, got a pretty good story already, and then if you can even remain a good person throughout that, like, you're even better. So
what do you mean the best story wins, John? If you have a really interesting life, but you're fucked because the infrastructure and government of your country has fallen, that's not good. And then there's a power vacuum, and it usually gets taken up by really bad people. Authoritarians, fascists, warlords, whatever. That's not good. That's an interesting story, but that doesn't make you win. It's awful.
Is it bad? Yes. But sometimes it has to be bad so that it can be good, which gets to our next point of good news, which is that it's getting worse. That is so based. We all knew it was going to have to get really bad before it could ever get better, and here we are, right on track, right on course.
John is absolutely losing it. Like, this is crazy even for him. What is going on with John today?
Sometimes you have to lose the battle to win the war. Other times you have to lose basically all the battles ever and then maybe win the war at the last minute. That's me and you, big guy. That's us. But seriously think about the sheer political realignment that has occurred in the last 48 hours on the right. Like, we are waking up to the reality of how bad things really are. And without that happening, we would never be able to fix anything. And because we don't have the means of mass communicating just how bad it could get to everybody, the only way for them to realize that was for it to get that bad. So this is a difficult yet necessary step, which gets into our next point, which is that we've been thrown into the water. We have now, or at least we're starting to, you know, seriously wake up, understand the reality of our situation, the gravity of our situation, and so from there we make a choice to either sink or swim. Because once you realize how bad it is, once you go down the rabbit hole, you now have an obligation to either consciously work to solve it or consciously choose to do nothing. In another moment, down went Alice after, never once considering how in the world she was going to get out again. I've been playing Far Cry 3 again. But the point is that it had to get worse in order for us to wake up, and now that we're waking up, what are we going to do? I don't know. But the final piece of good news, the only positive trend in the entire Western world, something that I've been prophesizing for the last 3 years, coming to fruition, and that is the Nathaniel Abbott Revenge Tour.
How does John play Far Cry and not hate it? Because Far Cry games are typically about, like, you're dropped into some place with some sort of totalitarian or fascistic regime, and then you burn it to the ground. Shouldn't John be like, no, I want to work for the warlord? I don't know.
Of course, we're all familiar with Cameraman Badan. We love Cameraman Badan, don't we, folks? A little bit of lore here from the HFC Expanded Universe. Cameraman Badan wears many hats, and you don't even get to see everything.
Yeah, John must not like Far Cry 5. American religious conservatives are the villain in Far Cry 5, which is one of the reasons I like that one a lot.
You just see what gets posted. I can't tell you how many times, how many hours we've spent driving to cover things.
Let me just say, I played a lot of Far Cry 5 in the uprun to the 2020 election. It was cathartic.
You guys, how many times we've driven across state lines to come back with no content, days spent with nothing to show, and that's because we're literally just vibing. This is a guy who I've hung out with like almost every day for the last 9 years, took all the same classes, all the same extracurriculars, worked at the same subway, etc. And now I'm going Texas mode. We're tagging in proxy cameraman Aldo on the journey, but Cameraman Badan will stay in Michigan because he's having an affair with Gretchen Whitmer, and I can prove it anecdotally. But the point being that for the better part of the last decade, they laughed. They laughed at Cameraman Badan. They laughed at him when he fell through a locker. They laughed at him when he shit himself during our tiebreaker game of Ultimate Frisbee that was live streamed to the entire grade. They laughed when he reverse drifted into a pole in the parking lot. They laughed because this is a guy who spent his entire career in public education playing Clash of Clans and getting radicalized by Alex Jones, and I laughed too because it was epic. But still, I foretold, John Made the Wise foretold the prophecy of the Revenge Tour. Now you look at the guy, he's a crypto genius, got a trad GF locked down, the content is flowing, the content kitchen doesn't close, so go sub to the Badan Chan, link is in the description, because at the end of the day, we're probably not all going to make it. But damn it, if Cameraman Badan makes it, that's enough for me. Everything burns except the breakfast, an introduction to waffle escapism. Ebook coming soon. Hey guys, if you like this video, leave it a thumbs up, leave it a comment, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so that you are notified in the event that I post, which I do, and you'd want to be notified about that, I would imagine, and then you're also going to want to share the video with a friend. That last one's not like a button, that's more of an independent thing. There's no real share. I mean, there is a share button, but that just kind of like prompts you to have the agency to go ahead and do that at your own accord. So I would imagine that the average viewer is doing like maybe 1.5 of these if we had to get the mean figure for the response from the audience. But, you know, that like 0.5% that does all 5 actions, we love the 0.5%. We love the 7%. We love the 0.5%. We love the 93% more than the 7%, frankly. But not like a gay way, you know, like a what's camaraderie? That's not a word. In a way that it conveys camaraderie. And they don't want you to think that's epic. They want you to think that's gay because they don't want you to form bonds with other men. They don't want you to kiss the homies goodnight because it'll help you bond with them. And so they tell you that it's gay. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. Kiss the homies goodnight. Unless you think you're going to enjoy it. That's really what it is. If someone like won't kiss you goodnight as a homie, it's like, what do you think, you're going to enjoy it? No. Like, do you enjoy helping your friend move? No, you do it because it's going to make you guys bonded. You do it because you're friends, right? I don't enjoy kissing the homies goodnight, but I do it for the same reason. Like, that's my friend. Obviously. Anyways, thank you so much for watching.
Holy shit. John is absolutely... Okay, here's what I think is happening. Okay. So John, being fashy, as he is, has been fantasizing for years about... Not that many years. He's not that old. He's 21. But I would imagine he's had some fantasies of like, oh, we're gonna storm the Capitol building and we're gonna take over and we're gonna install Trump as our dictator. Hooray! And then the other day, that fantasy was crushed when they tried, and it lasted about 2 hours, and then they got pushed back by police with riot shields, and only one of them even got shot. They barely had any resistance, and they still couldn't do anything. And I think it broke his brain. I think John realizing that he's not going to get the fascist dictatorship that he has wet dreams about, I think it broke him in a very serious way. And I think he's just going to get worse and worse and worse for the next 5 to 10 years. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm wondering if his channel's going to survive, especially making content like this. Because even though he's being like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, it's very clear he's supporting the people who raided the Capitol building, you know? So I don't know. John, please get help. Professional help. Please cease all of this nonsense. It's not worth it. You're only 21. You have plenty of time to decide not to be this, but, you know, whatever. Moving on. I want to